ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरून् श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. So today it's the eclipse time, and then it is mentioned during the eclipse time, whatever devotional practices that we do, it has multitude of effects. It has many benefits, but then it is quite inauspicious for doing any material activities. So these periods of eclipse is actually very beneficial for the spiritual activities, and this is the way to spend the time, this kind of time. So now we are going to see a very interesting topic from Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam is narrations which are like case studies, or which are demonstrations of the principles of Bhagavad Gita, what is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. So now the Srimad Bhagavatam covers many different topics. In our previous sessions also we had kind of mentioned this particular aspect, that atra sarga visargascha sthanam poshanam utaya manvantare chanukata nirodho muktirashraya. So these are the different subjects that Srimad Bhagavatam actually deals with. So sarga means creation, visarga means secondary creation, sthanam means like different positions of existence, like 14 planetary system that is created. Sthanam, poshanam is like the nourishment aspect, how the people will be nourished, people of this world. So that is poshanam. And utaya is creative impetus. That means the what is the propelling factor that pushes a person to do some work in this world. So even that, creative impetus. So what is that? That we understand. And manvantara ishanukata. So manvantara is nothing but different periods of time. How in various periods of time what all different things were happening, and then it's kind of history. Manvantara ishanukata is the glories of the Lord. So about the incarnations of the Lord, about when the Lord came to this world. So what all leelas he actually performed. Manvantara ishanukata. And nirodha means like nirodha, mukti, ashraya. So these three things are things that are dealing with we quitting this material world and going back to the spiritual world. So something of that sort, right? So these are all the things that is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. And it also talks about quite very practical aspects of life. So today we are going to see a pastime of Vritrasur. It's going to have many different inputs that we are going to get for our practical life. So one is that respecting our elders. So that is something we will get in the beginning. And then as we go further, we cannot just judge anybody based on their externals. We have to see what they are internally. So here we are going to see a demon by the name of Vritrasur, but then he is deep within his heart. He is a devotee of the Lord. So how is it so? We will see that, right? So it's very interesting subject. So now the scene starts like this. Indra, the king of the heavenly planets, he is the master of all the devatas, and he's surrounded with a lot of opulence. And he has so many people to entertain him, and so many nice dramas and arts and things like that is going on in a sabha. All these things is happening, and at that time his spiritual master Brahaspati happened to come over there. So when the Brahaspati came over there, So like Indra was so much absorbed in in the fan, like in all the activities or the arts that were going on over there, dance and music and things like that. He didn't pay attention to his spiritual master. He was so absorbed in his enjoyment. So when he did not, like, it's a basic guest reception, a protocol, that if anybody comes, even if I'm a poor person, I should be able to give him a like place to sit. I should be able to give him a glass of water, and then I should at least speak a little few sweet words. So this is the bare minimum guest reception that anybody can do, right? So but then here the like king of the heaven, Indra, who is having so much of opulence, and then like his spiritual master is coming, very very important person is coming. He's like, Indra is not a poor person, and Brahaspati is not like just anybody. So like such a kind of a scenario, when Brahaspati comes and Indra is not able to respect him properly, so Brahaspati, he just immediately leaves that place silently, understanding that this is not the right place for me to be in. I'm like they are enjoying in a different way, so let me not be there. So when the Brahaspati vanishes from the scene, Indra kind of laments that, what have I done? No, what have I just done? So I've just like neglected my spiritual master. He came to my sabha, but then I have not given him a proper seat. I have not respected him properly. So it is a big mistake that I have done. So he's kind of condemning his own wealth and opulence and things like that. So he mentions that one who do not offer respects to a brahmana or a superior goes to hell, and their followers also goes with them, right? So that is the kind of situation. So Indra was really condemning himself. How did I do this? So just before we get into the further aspect, who is this Indra? Indra means a person, like if a person follows the Varnashrama dharma very nicely, if he offers charity, and if he practices all good qualities, and then a person who has performed 100 Ashwamedha Yajna. So to perform so many like austerities and tapasyas and things like that, it requires so much of good what is that pious credits, and it like he's already shown his good behavior for a long standing time, and such a person is posted in the position of Indra. And now we see, like, even in that kind of a person who's having that kind of qualification, sometimes they also may commit some mistake, right? So here we see Indra is regretting himself, and then he want to beg forgiveness from his spiritual master. Unfortunately, he's not able to find him. Brahaspati has just simply vanished from the place, right? So he's just thinking that now I shall just find my spiritual master. I just fall at his feet, and I will just beg for forgiveness. So but then he's not able to find his spiritual master. So Indra searched everywhere, but then he's not able to get his spiritual master. So considering he's thinking in this way, I have displeased my spiritual master, there is no good fortune for me, I'm doomed. So like, though Indra is surrounded by so many powerful demigods, so many powerful devatas are there around him, so much of opulence is there around him, but he's lost complete peace. He's not able to get any peace of mind, right? So thinking that he has done such a unfortunate act. So then by this time these things are happening, the demons they also get to know, like the Indra has offended his spiritual master, and he's in a very like sad state right now. And hearing this thing, like the demon's spiritual master is Sukracharya, and Sukracharya, he instructs the demons like to attack the devatas at this point in time. So like and then following the spiritual master's instruction and pleasing the spiritual master, so the demons have nicely worshipped their spiritual master Sukracharya, and they have pleased him nicely. And now after doing this, so they are now like embarking into fighting with the demigods. So there is one very important point. Even if we are on the demoniac side, if we actually offer our submission to a spiritual master, and then if we follow his instructions and if we please him, we acquire a lot of power. So here the demons are demonstrating this. Generally, the demigods are very powerful. It's not possible for the demons to fight out the like devatas. So devatas are quite powerful, and generally they are the ones who are victorious in the battles. No, that's the general scenario. 99% or 90% you can say, like, no, they are the ones who are victorious. But in this scenario, Indra has offended his spiritual master, and the demons have worshipped their spiritual master nicely. So this is a very, very bad scenario. And then, the demons are able to attack them, and the demons were able to severely injure the devatas. And now Indra, having this problem, so he approaches Lord Brahma. So all the devatas and Indra, so they all go to Lord Brahma with their gravely injured bodies. No, they are going to see Lord Brahma. Seeing that, Lord Brahma is saying, no, how unfortunate is the situation. No, this madness arising from the opulence, no, that is really, really very dangerous. No, that is why in the scriptures it is called as Madanda. So that means like it is like it makes a person blind. This actually opulences and so much of richness and things like that, it actually poisons a person. So that's why Kunti Maharani also prays to Lord Krishna, saying that Janma Aishwarya Shuta Shribir Edamana Madapuman. So he says Janma, good birth, and then Aishwarya is good wealth, and Shruta is good education, and then Shri is good beauty. All these three things can put a person in madness, and it can actually intoxicate a person. And an intoxicated person, you don't know like what he is doing, right? So in that way, we see that here the devatas, like Lord Brahma is saying, how unfortunate is the situation, the madness that has arisen from the opulence, like you have transgressed the standard etiquette, and the demons are generally weak, having been defeated by you so many times. They have every time they have come to you, they have got defeat. But then now these less powerful people have been able to defeat you. Demons were weak, but now because of their devotion to their spiritual master, they have become very, very powerful, right? So one who has, and Lord Brahma says, one who has unshakable faith in the Brahmanas, cows, and the Supreme Lord Krishna, and always worship them, their position is very, very strong. This I'll just repeat. One who has unshakable faith in the Brahmanas, cows, and the Supreme Lord Krishna, and always worship them, their position is always very strong. This is very nice statement that the Lord Brahma is saying. So this is the Vedic culture. Vedic culture is to respect the Brahmanas and take care of the cows like one's children. Cow protection is a very, very essential aspect of the Vedic life. And here, Lord Brahma is rightly putting it. Brahmanas, cows, and the Supreme Lord. And if we worship them nicely, so then our position is very strong, right? So considering your position, Lord Brahma is saying, considering your position, I instruct you to take shelter of Vishwarup, the son of Tvashta, because Brihaspati's got offended, and he's not to be seen in the scene. And you people don't have a spiritual master now. So I advise you to go and take shelter of Vishwarup, the son of Tvashta. So he is a pure Brahmana. By his austerities and penances, he is very, very pure, and accept him as his guru, as your guru, and please him. And by his Brahmanical power, he will be able to make you powerful again, and then you can win over the demons. So this is the idea that Lord Brahma is giving. And he's telling that pleased by your worship, he will fulfill all your desires. But then there is one problem. He will also be inclined to the demons to some extent, because he's from father's side, he's related to the devatas, and from mother's side, he's related to the demons. And he will be somewhat giving some some benefits to the demons, but effectively he will make you win. He will support you, but then he will also have some affection towards the demons. So you should not worry about that. So this kind of instruction was given, and then he was like all the devatas were sent, and the devatas, they went and approached this Vishwarup. Actually speaking, this Vishwarup is quite young in age than these other prominent devatas, Indra, Chandra, and all of these people. So, but then, they, like all of them, they don't have any choice now. So they have to, go and approach Vishwarup. And when they approach Vishwarup, they are saying that, like, they're going as a guest to him, and then they're saying, you are like my son. You are like our son, and we are your guest also in your house. It is duty of the person to serve the elders, and also it is a duty of the of a householder or a person to like care for the guests who have come. And now we have come with a great problem in hand, and only you can solve it. So please, no, you what is it? You help us in this way. And then they are glorifying him, saying, "You are such a pure Brahmana. No, you know the Supreme Brahman perfectly, and then you are the natural spiritual master of all the people. So kindly accept us as your disciple, and then please give us, some what is that? Some power to win over the demons. Like, no, please engage us in yajna, and then make us again powerful." Right. So, and then don't think about criticism. No, because you are younger in age, we are elder in age. So, like, don't think about people's criticism. So we have come to you and seeking shelter, and like Lord Brahma has advised us to do this, to do this way. So in this way, all the devatas, they actually plead to Vishwarup, and then Vishwarup, he is telling, being he is very pleased with the attitude of the devatas, and then he's telling, okay, accepting priesthood, or accepting kind of if I have to become your priest or a spiritual master, so then that means I have to sacrifice some of my hard earned brahminical power for the sake of your well-being. So that is a sacrifice that I'm supposed to do. But since you are all what is that since you are all elders to me, and then you are requesting me, and you are in such an awkward kind of situation, so I cannot refuse your request. So a pure Brahmana, he is mentioning, a pure Brahmana should live by collecting refuses. That means what is not what is easily available. No, a pure Brahmana should live by collecting some refuses. And accepting professional priesthood shows the low mind of a Brahmana. That means if he is selling himself, saying, okay, I can perform you this yajna, and then you give me so much, and things like that. So if he's selling himself to such kind of a thing, so then it is not a very good thing, like that. So, but then here it has been requested by elders. So he's saying, okay, as a duty to my elders, no, I'll definitely accept this thing. And then, like Vishwarup, he's taking charge of the devatas, and then he's going to teach Indra a very, very special mantra, a powerful mantra, which is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam 6th canto, so which is called Narayana Kavacha. So Narayana Kavacha is a set of mantras which is composed of the holy names of the Lord. So invoking the names of the Lord to protect different parts of the body, right? So that is the effective, this one of Narayana Kavacha. And then he taught Indra this Narayana Kavacha, and he made him very stronger than the demons. And he enabled him to win over the demons, right? So that is how it happened. And a little description of Narayana Kavacha, I've just took a notes. It's a long this one, so long set of prayers are there. So basically the Narayana Kavacha is invoked like this: first performing Achaman. So Achaman is the basic spiritual or basic thing for starting any ritual. So before we start any proper ritual, though we have taken bath, we have clean clothes and everything, still we have to perform Achaman. So Achaman means like touching the water, chanting some mantras of the names of the Lord. So by doing that, we can actually Om Keshavaya Namaha, Om Madhavaya Namaha, like that. We have different mantras. So if we chant all those mantras and if we touch the water, so that actually purifies us. Then after that, the Narayana Kavacha, it starts by chanting first 8-syllable mantra, 12-syllable mantra, and 6-syllable mantra. So that is Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and Om Vishnave Namaha. So these three mantras are the prelude to this. Then after that, the Kavacha is invoked, that is composed of different names of the Supreme Lord, Vishnu. So these names are chanted, and then specifically the names of the Lord is invoked. One particular form of the Lord is invoked to protect the chest, one particular form of the Lord is invoked to protect the head, and one particular name of the Lord is invoked to protect in different directions. So like this, many different prayers that are there. Interested devotees can actually go to the 6th canto of Bhagavatam, and you can actually refer to it. It is a very nice this one, and probably we can share that in the group also. So definitely our Hare Krishna mantra is very powerful. We should not think that Hare Krishna mantra is not as powerful as Narayana Kavacha. Rather, the Hare Krishna mantra is more powerful than Narayana Kavacha. So we should have faith in that. But then being part of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is no wrong in studying the Narayana Kavacha, and then we can actually chant these prayers also. That's also very nice. So then there is like after these different things, different names are invoked for protecting different parts of the body. So then all the weapons or all the like divine weapons of the Lord is glorified, right? So these all this paying respects to these different divine weapons of the Lord. So this is essentially the composition of this Narayana Kavacha. And after that, the Vishwarup, he also tells a little bit of glories of this Narayana Kavacha. He says that once there was a Brahmana by name Kaushika, and then he was practicing this Narayana Kavacha. He used to daily recite this Narayana Kavacha. And then once purposely he gave up his body in one desert. So generally the sages and saints, they at their perfection, so they would they decide when they have to leave the body. It is not that death is forced upon them. They decide when they have to leave the body, and according to their development of spiritual consciousness, they can actually achieve a higher abode, higher destination. So they can actually plan, just like if we have to go to a foreign country, so we plan, we make bookings, and then we make travel arrangements and things like that. As a yogi, he actually makes like this. He can actually plan where he's going, and then he can actually do the pre-arrangements by his tapasya, spiritual practices, and then he can mark the time and he can leave the body. So that's how perfect the yogis are. So now this Kaushika, the Brahmana Kaushika, so he was, he left his body like that in one of the deserts, and he attained a higher destination. But his body was there in the desert, and it's been long time past. And one Gandharva, he was flying in the he was flying in his airplane, a Gandharva king by the name Chitraratha, and when he was flying on top of this desert, and especially on top of the dead body or remains of the dead body of this Brahmana Kaushika, his whole airplane was pulled down, and then he fell to the ground. And this Chitraratha is seeing who's that guy, who has did this, and he's just seeing everywhere, and he's not able to see anybody. And some sages who are living there, so they told that, see, you see these bones and these remains, these are all the remains of the body of this great sage, great Brahmana Kaushika, and he used to practice this Narayana Kavacha. And because of the power of Narayana Kavacha, even the dead body that is there, that's so powerful that it has made you fall down from the airplane. So that is how powerful is this Narayana Kavacha. And then one who's equipped with this armor can become freed from all dangers of life. So this is what is the thing that is mentioned. And then here we see that then Indra, he wins the battle with the demons very easily by equipped with this Narayana Kavacha. And then time is passing by. So one day when Indra was seeing that Vishwarup is performing sacrifice, now he is their head priest, and he is performing sacrifice. And this is a everyday job. It is not that sacrifice once in a year we will perform some homa or something like that. So sacrifice is an essential aspect. It has to be done every single day. That's why we do the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra every single day. That's the prescribed sacrifice for this age of Kali. So for the heavenly denizens, they have other procedures to be done. So Vishwarup is performing this sacrifice, and then he is actually offering ahuti into the Yajna Kunda. And when he's doing this, he is offering mantras, saying, okay, Indraya Swaha, this Swaha, that Swaha. And he's also doing some swahas for the demons. He's also giving some benefit of the yajna to the demons. And seeing this, Indra gets angry. If you can just remember, Brahma, when he directed the devatas to go and take shelter of Vishwarup, that time itself he told that you should not be worried about his giving some share to the demons. He will be favorable to the demons, but he will be mostly favorable to you. So you should not be worrying about this. So that's something that he was told before only, but then they didn't pay much of heed to it. So now Indra is seeing that this person is giving some favor to the demons also. He immediately takes up his sword, cuts the head of Vishwarup. No, that's a big sin. Now it has become a Brahma Hatya. A Brahmana is being killed. So before this, what sin was there for Indra? He didn't respect his spiritual master Brahaspati. Now what he did, No, he just killed his spiritual master. He just took his sword and he just killed the spiritual master. So now this is a very serious sin. No, the sin of killing a brahmana is very, very serious. And then he accepted that sin, and then he suffered for 1 year. Like, no, he was he suffered the reactions of the sins for 1 year. Then later he distributed the sins to four different, entities. One is one portion, 1/4 of the sins he distributed to land. In that way, the lands started having the this one areas where no the good vegetation would not grow, so that's more in number. It actually increased. Many patches of land became uncultivatable, like that. And then water, he gave 1/4 of the sins to the water. So where if the water has bubbles, that is a sign of impurity of the water. We cannot use such water for good purposes. Water should be clear and clean. And then he shared 1/4 of the sin to trees, wherein the sap of the tree is considered to be not very auspicious. And then he shared 1/4 to the women in general. So that's how the menstrual period actually comes into picture. So in this way, these four sins are being distributed by Indra. So, but after this, Indra becomes freed from the Brahmahatya sin. Then the father of Vishwarup, the Brahmana whom Indra killed. So father of Vishwarup, Tvashta, he became very angry. How's this guy, he killed my son, and then now he's living so happily. How is it possible? So he was in so much of anger. You see, one mistake actually starts into a chain reaction of further and further and further mistakes, right? So further and further envy and hatred, and then fights and things like that. It's all starts with one small thing. It's like he just didn't pay attention to his spiritual master entering into the assembly, and then that is leading to so much of crisis that is coming, and even more to come, right? So now Tvashta, he's seeing that I have to do something to curtail this guy Indra. And then he is also a very nice Brahmana. So he arranges for sacrifice, and then he is chanting a specific mantra to create a demon who will kill Indra. No, he is telling Indra Shatro Vivarjasva, like that. No, he's actually chanting this kind of mantras. But then I don't exactly remember where. So if a short pronunciation is made long, especially in this particular mantra that he was chanting, specifically to create a demon. His intention was to create a demon. O enemy of Indra, please flourish. He's just chanting a mantra like this. But then because of his prolonged pronunciation somewhere, it so happened that Indra, the enemy, you flourish, like that. So it changed the whole meaning over there. So then he was chanting like this. Then after some time, a very, very fearful looking personality emerged from the Yajna-kunda, and then he's growing and growing and growing. He's just covering up everything in the sky. So because he was unimaginably growing in his size, so he was called as Bruta, Brutra, he's expanding like anything. So now this Vrutra, he was very, very terrific, very fearful looking personality. And then he was so much filled with power. And then immediately, he was on the job to kill Indra. And then all the demigods, all the demons actually joined with Vrutrasur, and everybody were starting to attack the Devatas. And now the Devatas are again in problem. So this time they go to the shelter of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. So when they go to the shelter of Lord Vishnu, and they are offering very wonderful prayers and very wonderful praises of the glories of the Lord, and then they are seeking their help from the Lord. So then the Lord is actually mentioning that I'm very, very satisfied with your prayers, but then you have satisfied me so much with your prayers, but then what you're asking for is no, please get my heavenly kingdom back. No, we have lost our kingdom. No, get the kingdom back. So, but you should know, my pure devotees, they never ask me like this anything. No, they just simply please me, and then they just simply want to engage in my service, and they don't want to ask anything from me. So but then you have asked me, you have pleased me, so definitely whatever you are thinking will you will achieve it. So because a person who has pleased me, nothing can go in vain for him. So there is no loss at his part. So definitely your success is assured. But then I would say, you have to go and beg to Dadichi Muni. Dadichi Muni is another great sage. So beg from Dadichi Muni that you please give your bones, and then take the bones of Dadichi Muni and make a thunderbolt or Vajrayudha. So with that Vajrayudha, you can actually destroy your enemy. So that's the plan that the Lord is giving. So then all the devatas, it is really a very difficult situation. In fact, in the past, when one of the subordinate devatas like Ashwini Kumaras, they are considered to be the doctors or the Vaidyas in the heavenly planets. So when they wanted to learn something from Dadichi Muni, so Indra was very angry that these people are lower in category. So why should these people be taught something higher? So he was even like kind of telling Dadichi Muni that if you teach these guys whatever they're asking for, I will come and cut your head. In fact, Indra did it also. Like he came and cut the head of Dadichi Muni. And because the Ashwini Kumaras were doctors, they were Vaidyas, they again fixed the head back, in the position. So now Lord knows all these things. Lord knows all these things. And this is the time, like Lord is actually making use of, and he's telling, okay, you want to win your enemy? Like, no, you go to this person, Dadichi Muni, and you ask from him, you beg from him, his bones. Like, things like that. So it is kind of humiliating experience. I have insulted somebody, and now I have to go and beg favor from the same person. It's a very, very humiliating experience. But then they don't have any option. And no, that's kind of the Lord's way of teaching humility for his devotees, for his devatas and things like that. So now we see that these people are approaching Dadichi Muni, and they are saying that oh my Lord, oh Brahmana, we have come here to ask you some favor. We have come at your doorstep as a guest, and we are coming here for begging. And great people like you, you cannot say no to anything. And you are a great Brahmana, you don't have any attachment for anything of this world. We are come here for asking some favor. Lord Vishnu has directed us to go and beg from you the body of your bones, and then we want to make a Vajrayudha out of it, and that is how we will be able to win the battle. Here another thing that we can actually see, the Lord knows things very well. He knows that these people are looking for gaining their kingdom back, gaining their land back, and then he is directing to a person, Dadichi Muni, who's not even having attachment to his own body. In a short while we will see Dadichi Muni is saying that, okay, if my body is of some use to somebody, I'm very, very happy you take it, right? So before that, Dadichi Muni is going to play some tricks. So he's telling that, how dare you ask my body? How dare you ask me to die? Just because it is going to be favorable for you. How dare you can do this thing? Don't you know the bodies? Everyone likes their body very much, and everybody does so many things to just keep the body alive. They can do anything and everything, and you are coming and asking for my body. So how can you do this? Even if Vishnu has directed you, how dare you come and ask me this thing? So then the devatas, they are saying that, my Lord, you are a large-hearted person. If the person who's asking for what is that asking for something, if he knows the pain of the person who's supposed to give the charity, definitely he will not ask for something very difficult. At the same time, if the person who's giving charity, if he knows the pain of the person who's asking, he will definitely not say no to any of the things that has been asked. So in this way, they are telling this ones. So then Dadichi Muni says, okay, fine. Now, anyway, I just wanted to hear some words of dharma from you people. So since you're telling that it is order of Vishnu, and or it is a desire of Vishnu, and also it is what is that no, you people want, and you have begged me, definitely I'll give my body. And then he'll say something very wonderful. What is the use of this body if it cannot be used in other service? You see, in the childhood, we needed this help and support of our parents, without which we couldn't able to sustain. And in the old age, again, we need the help and support of other people. And in the middle period, if we go by this logic, what is the purpose of the middle period? Is to help and support others, right? So that is something very, very essential, very basic humanitarian act. So, and here Dadichi Muni is saying, if my body can be of some use to you, definitely, like I'm very, very happy. No, I am very happy that I'm of some use to somebody. So he immediately gives up his body, and then the demigods collect the bones of the Dadichi Muni. You can imagine the sense of this one. The demigods are fighting for their kingdom, and Lord is directing them to a person who's not even attached to his body. He's just ready to give up his body at the request, right? So this is something, that we can learn. This is the way actually Lord treats. No, Lord is not saying, "Hey, no, why are you people are attached to some silly things? If the kingdom is gone, you just take it as your karma, and then you just continue, like you just perform your devotion and dedicate your life to me and things like that." He could have told something of that sort, but then he's telling that, okay, you have this problem, I'll send you to a person who has conquered that problem thoroughly. No, you have a problem of attachment to your kingdom, I'll send you to a person where he is not even attached to his own body. So in that way, like, the purification actually happens. This is the way actually the Lord trains his devotees, very nicely. He purifies of all their attachment, and then he's trying to, like, put them on a very, very high position of exalted state of devotion, right? So, and if a person is a great, like, if he's conquered over all these attachments and things like that, he can actually live in great opulence. No, that's really, really very great opulence, and he cannot be tormented by any problems, any like any what is that, any miseries of this world. That's the greatness of this particular thing, right? So, and then we see that after they get this Vajrayuddha, so they are going to the battle, and then they are challenging the Vitrasur. So now I'm going to share a small portion of my screen, and then I'm going to show you some very wonderful text of Srimad Bhagavatam. And it is it is also a very great fortune that all of you are all of us have assembled on this very auspicious day. So let us read from the divine words of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So let's just read that, for one for next few minutes, right? Okay, so we are ready to go. Okay, so I've just made it a little mobile friendly also. Okay, so this is the thing. Now this is the starting of this chapter. Now we are going to read this chapter. So this is the 11th chapter of 6th canto of Bhagavatam, right? So let's try to read this thing. Okay. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, "O king, Vritrasur, the commander-in-chief of the demons, advised his lieutenants in the principle of religion, but the cowardly demonic commanders, intent upon fleeing the battlefield, were so disturbed by fear that they could not accept his words." All the demons, they are seeing that these devatas are quite powerful now. They are having very powerful weapon. They are all fleeing from this one. And then Vritrasur is seeing that my team is like just getting scattered. Why are they afraid so much? And then it continues. "O King Parikshit, the demigods, taking advantage of a favorable opportunity present by time, attacked the army of demons from the rear and began driving away the demoniac soldiers, scattering them here and there, and as if their army had no leader. Seeing the pitiable condition of his soldiers, Vritrasur, the best of the asuras, was called Indrashatru, the enemy of Indra, was very much aggrieved. Unable to tolerate such reverses, he stopped and forcefully rebuked the demigods, began speaking the following words in angry mood. Right? The demigods, "O demigods, these demoniac soldiers have taken birth uselessly. Indeed, they have come from the bodies of their mothers exactly like stool. What is the benefit of killing such enemies from behind while they are running in fear? One who considers himself a hero should not kill an enemy who's afraid of losing his life. Such killing is never glorious, nor can it promote one to heavenly planets. O insignificant demigods, if you truly have faith in your heroism, if you have patience in the core of your hearts, and if you have any, if you're not ambitious for sense gratification, please stand before me for a moment." Right? So he's just giving this one challenge to the devatas to stand before him and fight. Sukadeva Goswami said, "Vritrasur, the angry and most powerful hero, terrified the demigods with his stout and strongly built body. When he roared with a resounding voice, nearly all living entities fainted. When all the demigods heard Vritrasur's tumultuous roar, which resembled that of a lion, they fainted and fell to the ground as if struck by thunderbolt. As the demigods closed their eyes in fear, Vritrasur, taking up his trident and making the earth tremble with his great strength, trampled the demigods beneath his feet on the battlefield, the way a mad elephant tramples hollow bamboos in the forest. Seeing Vritrasur's disposition, Indra, the king of heaven, became intolerant and threw at him one of his great clubs, which are extremely difficult to counteract. However, the club flew towards him. Vritrasur easily caught it with his left hand. Right? O King Parikshit, the powerful Vritrasur, the enemy of King Indra, angrily struck the head of Indra's elephant with that club. No, he caught the club in his left hand and he is giving a blow, no, with that club, making a tumultuous sound on the battlefield. For this heroic deed, the soldiers on both sides glorified him. Right? So, struck with the club of Vritrasur, like a mountain struck by thunderbolt, the elephant Airavata, the Indra's Vahana, feeling great pain and spitting blood from its broken mouth, was pushed back 14 yards. In great distress, the elephant fell with Indra on its back. When he saw Indra's carrier, elephant was fatigued and injured, and when he saw Indra morose because his carrier had been harmed in that way, the great soul Vritrasur, following religious principles, refrained again striking Indra with his club. Taking this opportunity, Indra touched the elephant with his nectar-producing hand and relieving the animal's pain and curing its injuries. Then the elephant and Indra both stood silently. Now we see that both of them Indra is now losing hope, saying, "This enemy is so powerful. No, what can I fight? No, what can I do with this guy?" So he's just losing hope with that. So now he's what is that? It continues. O King, when the great hero Vritrasur saw Indra, his enemy, the killer of his brother, standing before him with a thunderbolt in his hand, desiring to fight, Vritrasur remembered how Indra had cruelly killed his brother. Thinking of Indra's sinful activity, he became mad with lamentation and forgetfulness. Laughing sarcastically, he spoke as follows. So Sri Vritra Uvacha. So this is now you see who's the brother? He is produced by Tvashta, and Tvashta's another son was Vishwarup. So Vishwarup was killed by Indra, and now Vritrasur is considering Vishwarup his brother. And though he was born of Yagyakunda, because Tvashta created him, so he considers Vishwarup as his brother. And now Vritrasur is going to speak this heroic speech, and it's very, very wonderful to see. Right, so Vritrasur said, Sri Vritrasur said, this Sri is put because he's a great devotee, that we will see in some time. No, he who has killed a Brahmana, he who has killed a spiritual master, indeed who has killed my brother, is now by good fortune standing before me face to face as my enemy. O most abominable one, I will pierce your stone-like heart with my trident. I shall be freed from my debt to my brother. Only for the sake of living in the heavenly planets, you killed my elder brother. Oh, a self-realized, sinless, qualified Brahmana who had been appointed your chief priest. No, he was your spiritual master. Although you entrusted him with performance of your sacrifice, you later mercilessly severed his heads from his body, the way one butchers an animal. Indra, you are bereft of all shame, mercy, glory, and good fortune. Deprived of these good qualities by the reactions of your fruitive activities, you are now to be condemned even by the man-eater Rakshasas. Now I shall pierce your body with my trident, and after you die with great pain, even fire will not touch you. Only the vultures will eat your body. No, you are naturally cruel. If the other demigods, unaware of my prowess, follow you by attacking me with their raised weapons, I shall sever their heads with this sharp trident. With those heads, I shall perform a sacrifice for Bhairava and those and other leaders of the ghosts along with their heralds. And then, but if in this battle, now the whole thing, this is the turning point of the whole pastime. Now, Vritrasur is going to change in the mood completely. Let's just see this, what's happening now. He's saying, but if in this battle you cut off my head with your thunderbolt and kill my soldiers, O Indra, O great hero, I shall take pleasure in offering my body to other living entities such as jackals and vultures. I shall thus be relieved of my obligation to the reactions of my karma, and my fortune will be to receive the dust from the lotus feet of great devotees like Narad Muni. Right? So this is like, no, whole thing is changing now. He was talking about, no, doing a Kala Bhairava Yajna, where, no, using the heads of all the, no, devatas and things like that. And now he's talking about something devotional. You know, he's telling that, you know, like if I happen to be killed in this battle, then I will become, no, then I will actually aspire to receive the great fortune of dust from the lotus feet of great devotees like Narad Muni. And it is mentioned, the dust from the lotus feet of great devotees means to accept their instructions and to follow their instructions in one's life. So that's the meaning of it. So like, he is, he's a devotee by heart, but then demon by appearance. So now that we will see in a short while how the whole mood is changing now, right? So he's telling that, O king of the demigods, since I am your enemy, I am standing before you. Why don't you hurl your thunderbolt at me? Although your attack upon me with your club was certainly useless, like a request of money from a miser, the thunderbolt thunderbolt you carry will not be useless. You have no doubts about it, right? So, and then he's saying, O Indra, king of heaven, the thunderbolt you carry to kill me has been empowered by the prowess of Lord Vishnu and the strength of Dadichi's austerities. Since you have come here to kill me in accordance with Lord Vishnu's order, there is no doubt that I shall be killed by the release of your thunderbolt. Lord Vishnu has sided with you, therefore your victory, opulence, and all good fortune or good qualities are assured. So this is something, you see, it's almost like, Indra's lost hope to fight, and then he is standing there silently. And now, it's almost like Krishna is pepping up Arjuna to fight the battle. No, this is your duty, you do. In the same way, like, no, it's role reversal is happening here. Vritrasur and Asura, he is telling that, you see, like, the Lord has told you that use this thunderbolt to kill this demon, and you have come on his order, and you don't even have such faith on the words of Lord Vishnu. Now, why are you standing quietly? No, take the thunderbolt and then attack me. No, like, which person will speak like this? No, it is something very amazing actually to see. No, he's telling that, no, have faith on the words of Lord Vishnu. No, whatever he has told, it will definitely work. And then, no, please, like, you take up your thunderbolt and you attack me. And then he says, by the force of your thunderbolt, I shall be freed from material bondage and shall give up this body and this world of material desires. Fixing my mind upon the lotus feet of Lord Sankarshana, I shall attain the destination of such great sages as Narad Muni, just as the Lord Sankarshana has said. So, this is a previous promise that is there to Vritrasur, that if he is like, after this life, he is going to ascend back to Vaikuntha, and he is very eager now. He's very, very eager now to go back to Vaikuntha, and he's telling, no, oh Indra, pick up your thunderbolt and you kill me. No, I am eager to go back to the Supreme Lord or the Supreme Abode. And then, so he says, persons who are fully surrendered at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and always think of his lotus feet are accepted and recognized by the Lord as his own personal assistants or servants. The Lord never bestow upon such servants the brilliant opulence of upper, lower, and middle planetary systems of this material world. When one possesses material opulence in any of these three divisions of the universe, his possessions naturally increase his enmity, anxiety, mental agitation, pride, and belligerence. Thus, one goes through much endeavor to increase and maintain his possessions, and he suffers great unhappiness when he loses them. Then he says, our Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, forbids his devotees to endeavor uselessly for religion, economic development, sense gratification. O Indra, one can thus infer how kind the Lord is. Such mercy is obtainable only by unalloyed devotees, not by persons who aspires for material gains. Before this, the Lord was preaching to the Devatas by saying, you want material gain, you want your kingdom back, you go to Dadichi, who's completely renounced. And now this enemy of Indra, he is telling that you are so much obsessed in having your heavenly kingdom, and you want to get your heavenly kingdom back, right? So now you take it from me that a person who's so much obsessed to get material gains, he will never achieve the devotion to the Supreme Lord. No, I am ready to give up my body. I am ready to go, and you take the heavenly kingdom. I don't care. No, you just take it, like that. So it's like, complete this one role reversal that is happening here. Oh my Lord, oh Supreme Personality of Godhead, will I again be able to be a servant of your eternal servants? No, let's just stand this one. Aham harer tava padaika mula दासानुदासो भवितास्मि भूयः मनस मरेथासु पथेर गुणाम स्थे granita vak karma karotu kaya. So this is a very, very amazing prayer. Vitrasu is saying, oh my Lord. So now he stops speaking to Indra. Now his meditation has gone to the lotus feet of the Lord. Now he is directly addressing the Lord. He's no more speaking in the conversation. No, Indra is just standing in front of him, but he's just not bothered about him. Now he is just right in the midst of battlefield, right in the midst of his enemies. He just fixes his mind on the Supreme Lord, and he's going to offer very wonderful glorification now, right? Oh my Lord, oh Supreme Personality of Godhead, will I again be able to be a servant of your eternal servants who find shelter only at your lotus feet? Oh my life, oh Lord, oh my life, may I again become their servant, so that my mind may always think of your transcendental attributes, my words always glorify those attributes, and my body always engage in the loving service of your Lordship. Then this is also a very nice shloka. It says, Nana kaprishtam nacha parameshtyam na sarvabhaumam na rasadhipatyam na yoga siddhir apunar bhavam va samanjasa tva virahaya kangshe. So he says, oh my Lord, O source of all opportunities, I do not desire to enjoy the Dhruva Loka, the heavenly planets, or the planets where Lord Brahma reside, nor do I want to be supreme ruler of all the earthly planets, nor lower planetary system. I do not desire to be master of powers of mystic yoga, nor I want liberation. If I have to give up your lotus feet, that means if I have been asked to forget your lotus feet and I have been offered big opportunities in this world, I don't care about them. No, I just don't want any of those things. I just simply want you, my Lord, like that. So just like Arjuna tells to Krishna, when Krishna's army and Krishna is put, so Duryodhana takes Krishna's army, like, I want Krishna's opulence. No, I want Lakshmi. But then Arjuna says, no, I don't want Lakshmi, my Lord. I want you. No, if you are there, that is sufficient for me. And then victory comes to that side, right? So this is, we see the next sloka. O lotus-eyed Lord, Pundarikaksha, as baby birds that have not yet developed their wings always look for their mother to return and feed them, as small calves tied with ropes always await anxiously the time of milking, when they will be allowed to drink the milk from their mothers, or as a morose wife whose husband is away from home always longs for him to return and satisfy her in all respects, I always earn for the opportunity to render direct service unto you. So next sloka. Oh my Lord, my Master, I am wandering throughout this material world as a result of my fruitive activities. Therefore, I simply seek friendship in the association of your pious and enlightened devotees. My attachment to my body, wife, children, and home is continuing by the spell of your external energy, but I wish to be attached to them no longer. Let my mind, my consciousness, and everything I have be attached only to you. So this position, we have to come to this position at the time of leaving the body, right? So throughout the life, we may work for our family, but then at the time of quitting the body, one has to detach from everything. Even if I don't detach, I'll be forced to get detached, by the heavy blow of death. Before that point, one should come to this one. So we should not take it as a wrong thing, like we should give up all these things. No, it is not like that. We treat them very nicely. We take care of them very nicely. And also we should know that our eternal journey is also there. It is just like in a train, if we go, there are so many fellow passengers are there. We are not averse to them. We are very nice with them and things like that. But then we also know that I have to get down from the train and I have to continue my journey further. So in the same way, we should understand all the relatives and friends in our life. They are like co-passengers in our journey. And when our destination comes, we just have to unboard, and other people will continue with their own journeys, right? So we have to learn this art of attaching ourselves to the lotus feet of the Lord, and we should practice this thing, right? So this is a very important aspect. I'm sorry. So this is a very, very important aspect that is mentioned here. So then Indra is confused after hearing all these things, and then he is getting bewildered, what's happening here. I came to fight with a demon. I came to kill this demon. But then he's speaking like a devotee, already I killed one Brahmana, and this guy is looking like another one. And what should I do? And then he is speaking like this. But then in the next chapter, we will see again, Vritrasura attacking, and then he's speaking some nice glories of the Lord, and he's attacking. So Indra is completely confused. And then finally he takes his thunderbolt and he cuts his one arm. And then Vritrasura is fighting with another arm. He's just blowing him off. And then Indra is cutting the other arm also. Then after that, Vritrasura opens his wide mouth and he swallows Indra. And then Indra goes into the stomach of Vritrasura. And then all the devatas are in tension now. What happens? Our leader is gone. So then after that, Indra uses his Narayana Kavacha. He cuts open his body. He comes out. And then he starts cutting the head of Vritrasura. And in this pastime, we see that who is the actual winner of this whole battle. The actual winner of the whole battle is Vritrasura, because he is a devotee of the Lord, and he has made up his mind, my death is going to come now, and I have to prepare my mind to fix my mind completely at the lotus feet of the Lord. And fixing in that way, I have to quit my body. And then he got a very, very amazing opportunity to be killed by Indra. And then he just fixed his mind. And it's completely a heroic activity that Vritrasura is doing here, right? So I just summarized many other aspects. I focused more on the prayers of Vritrasura. And that's considered to be one of the powerful prayers of Srimad Bhagavatam. I just open it up for the questions now. Anybody has any questions, they can put it up. Okay. So this is, how do I know who's spiritual master or Brahmana? One who knows, Brahmana means it's quite simple. Brahma Janati iti Brahmana. So one who knows about the Supreme Lord, one who practices a very disciplined life in the practice of devotion, he is called as a Brahmana. And then a spiritual master is something that you accept. If you accept somebody as your spiritual master, he becomes your spiritual master. And a proper Brahmana has to be accepted as a spiritual master. So why did he still stay in the post of Indra? Why didn't someone else occupy the Indra's position? This is a very nice question. The Lord, how the Lord treats, when the Lord understood he did some mistake, he is not throwing him away from the post, but he is giving corrective actions. So this is how we should also learn things. When somebody does something wrong, we should not don't do extreme things of removing them and things like that. So better to engage them in a corrective measure, and in that way we can actually make them very nice, make them very great again, right? So that's something we can see from this particular this one. So sorry, and then where I was, okay. So and then I know we should please the God by making sacrifice, but sometimes rarely we should ask something from the Lord. What does the scripture say on this? Definitely asking something from the Lord is not bad. The scriptures say that akama sarva kamavo moksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena ijeta purusham param. So whether I have some desire, I don't have any desire, whatever it is, I can approach the Lord and I can actually submit my prayers to him. So definitely that is not a wrong thing. But a highest thing is that, oh my Lord, already you have been giving me so many things. I just simply wanted to render service to you. So that's really very nice thing, which Lord also likes. Otherwise also it is not a problem. If we ask something from the Lord, definitely it is not a problem. We can definitely ask. And who is Sukadeva Goswami? He is the speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam. He is the speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam. And he's speaking it to King Parikshit. That is why you see the Sukadeva Goswami is telling, O king, like that. He's addressing to his audience like that. And then which book did you refer from the shlokas? So this is Srimad Bhagavatam. I will share this set of chapters in our group, so you can go through them. It is very purifying. Only while submitting self to the lotus feet of the Lord, considered as devotional, only while okay, so no, not just at the end of the life, all the time we should cultivate this kind of a habit. That is when we will be able to do it at the end of the life. So throughout the life, if we have not done this, then at the end of the life, suddenly we will not be able to do this, right? So regarding the eclipse today, why is grass put on the footsteps? Is there any spiritual reason? What is the, okay, this Dhruva grass, that is there. So that is considered to be very auspicious and pure, so it doesn't get contaminated. And the other foodstuffs are considered to be like it can become contaminated. But if the foodstuff is offered to the Lord Vishnu, then Vishnu Prasad is also not get contaminated. So like that is this one. So we should, if we can connect everything to Lord Vishnu, so then the Vishnu is the purifying factor. So like Arjuna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, Parabrahma Param Dhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. No, he is called as the Pavitra, like he is the purest of all the pure. So by remembering him, we also like discuss the sloka. Om apavitro pavitro va sarvavastam gatopiva yat mared pundarikaksham. Just this, yat mared pundarikaksham. Just by remembering Pundarikaksha, like sabhya abhantara suchihi, where everything becomes like like pure and clean, right? So by chanting the names of the Lord, so we can, as devotees of the Lord. So this is more like these things applicable more for Karma Kandiya sections, like where people are not devotees of the Lord, but then they want to be like saved from these things. So but then for a devotee of the Lord, everything is applied in the service of the Lord. So for him, like he doesn't need to worry so much about these things. Like basically, yeah, the unoffered foodstuffs, whatever is there, or the food like basic ingredients, we can put this grass and keep it safe. And then how did Vritrasur got these qualities? What is the background? Oh, that's another big story. That's same question even Parikshit Maharaj asked. So that gets into the story of Chitraketu Maharaj. He was a great devotee of Lord Sankarshana. So that is mentioned there in this one. So he's telling that, no, I will fix my thoughts on Lord Sankarshana and I will get back to the abode. So Lord Sankarshana is the name of Lord Vishnu. And he was a great devotee, but then he was cursed by Mother Parvati to become a demon. So that's the background is different, but then he is cursed by Mother Parvati to become a demon. And then he just have to take this birth of demon, and then he's already is a great devotee. He is just going back to the spiritual world, like that. There are many rituals people say that need to be followed during Grahana, like should not cook, should not go out and things like that. Are they true and mentioned in the scriptures? Yes, definitely they are there. And this is a kind of contaminating kind of a period, and all material activities has this dosha. But then if we do spiritual activities, then it doesn't have dosha. So like activities of like chanting the names of the Lord, or discussing about the glories of the Lord. Just we did the glories of a devotee, Vritrasur, we discussed about that. So these things are very amazing, and these things can act as purifying factor. So materially speaking, if we don't do any Vishnu bhakti, then yeah, we have to follow all those other procedures, definitely, to keep ourselves free from contamination. And can we cut tulasi leaves on Sunday or not? If not, why? Like generally we don't cut tulsi leaves on the Dwadashi. Rest of the days we can. Like we can cut the tulsi leaves. And one very important thing, tulasi is like wife of Vishnu, and tulasi should be offered only to Vishnu and not to anybody else. Sometimes we see like tulsi is offered everywhere, and sometimes we see like tulsi is strewn in the like in the floor also. It is not just like any other flower or things like that. Tulsi has to be worshipped very carefully, and if you're using tulsi, like be very careful and not use it carelessly. And sometimes I see in funeral ceremonies also, like they take tulsi and put on the dead body. This is all completely offensive. Tulsi should be used only for Vishnu worship. Tulsi is a wife of Lord Vishnu, and she should be used only for Vishnu worship, right? So is tomorrow the usual session of Gita? Is there? Yeah, it is there. Why do Puranas differ so much? For example, some Puranas say Vishnu is the Supreme Lord, and some others say Shiva is the Supreme Lord. No, I don't think so. Like all the Puranas, like all the Vedic scriptures, like Lord Krishna says, this one, the essence of all the Vedic scriptures is Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, like Veda ischa sarvam ahameva vedya vedanta krit vedavit eva chaham. So there is no confusion in the scriptures. There is no confusion amongst the demigods also. Like there is no confusion amongst all these personalities. So we have seen that in the chapter of who is the boss. There is one like who is the Supreme Lord. We did one session on that Gita course. So even traditionally, any Brahmana you take, like don't take from ISKCON, anywhere you take, if they have to perform any yajna, they will establish the yajna purusha first. That is Lord Vishnu. Then after that, they will do Ganesha Homa or no Homa for any personality. Vishnu is the basis of all the yajnas. Vishnu is the like prime connecting entity of everything. So that is that is like very well known for everyone. So that is these days these kind of wrong kind of interpretations and understanding is coming. But in the Vedic times, this kind of confusion was never there. God means Vishnu. That's it. No, there is no confusion about these things. And about Shiva, we discussed. No, Shiva is almost like Lord Vishnu. No, but he has jurisdiction only in the material world, not in the Vaikuntha. So in terms of material world, he is as good as Vishnu. No, he can function as the Paramatma. He can know everything that is there. He can be like a Sarva Vyapi, no, Sarva Gata. No, he can be there at every place. He knows everything. He controls everything, and know everything. All these qualities are there for Lord Shiva. But then he is only capable in the material world, not in the Vaikuntha. In Vaikuntha, only the Lord Vishnu. No, he is the Supreme Lord. And Lord Shiva has been invested with this power to do this job in the material world by Lord Vishnu, right? So Tulsi can be plucked or not. No, we can pluck Tulsi for the worship of Lord Vishnu. And then science is so developed. I read Gita, but sometimes I feel, is God really there? I know this as well, but if I believe, then it's a way to happiness. How do I make strong belief? So God is there or not? Okay, you can ask this question. How is the sun and moon rising and setting every single day? Such powerful entity as sun, no, it is rising and setting every day. No, none of our scientists have put these sun and moon just like they have put any satellite. And then who has made this formula that the seed of a particular tree, if you sow, these kind of properties should be there, and these kind of trees should come, and these kind of fruits and flowers should come? Who has made that property? Who has created that intelligence behind the seed? And in this way, you can just study the nature. None of the things which are present in the nature, our scientists can do. One scientist, like we have one devotee who is a very amazing scientist also. He kind of challenges, saying, God has created a mosquito which can feed itself, which can reproduce itself. And you have created some cars and other things and all, that's okay. But then can you produce as small entity as a mosquito, and which can feed itself, which can reproduce itself? If you can create something like that, then I accept, okay, God is not there. No. So if you cannot create, then you have to accept that somebody has created this. Some real brainy stuff is there. Some real intelligent person is there, and who has created this, right? So we can actually take this inspiration, like that. So we just study the nature. So many things will stump us. So many things will stump our ideas that this cannot possibly be a creation of man, or this cannot be possibly a creation of permutation and combination. Another theory that is there is this theory of evolution. Like we all evolved from apes and things like that and all. But then definitely that is not true, because if that is the case, then why are all these apes are still there? Why are all these monkeys are still there? Why in the current day, why the monkeys are not becoming human beings? All this theory of evolution is bogus, right? So we have to like all these things we have studied in our schools and colleges, but then this is bogus actually. We have to see that our modern education in one way is kind of to kill our God consciousness, to kill our theism. That's the whole purpose of the modern education. And that's why we see that people who are educated in the modern ways, like they find it difficult to agree upon. So even I also went through the same phase. But then when I studied the scriptures, it appealed me, and it has so much science in it. Actual science is the scriptures, and the science what is practice outside, it has so many beliefs. In fact, the science is standing on so many beliefs. The science is standing on the belief that man has evolved from the apes, and they cannot prove it. And science is having the belief that Big Bang has created something. This is all beliefs. But then the scriptures have solid science. If we want solid science, we have to come to scriptures, not the so-called science of this world. That's bogus actually. And they have just managed to manipulate a little bit of matter and then create some facilities for better facilities for our sense enjoyment, and then better facilities to create destroy the things. They have created the this bombs and missiles and things like that. That's the credit to them, right? And they have created such creations which is creating global warming, and which is creating so much of ecological problem, psychological problem, and things like that, right? So every electronic equipment, We are also dependent on electronic equipment, but then every electronic equipment is going to create disturbance to the mind. It is going to emit some waves which is going to not in synchronous um, with our mind and things like that. It's going to create disturbance, right? So in this way, all our creation has so much of negativities, right? So but then God's creation, you see, like it is so wonderful. You just be there in the God's creation. You go to a natural setting, everything that looks is so beautiful, and the whole environment is soothing, and you feel like being there, right? So you just go into an industry or a commercial street or something like that. No, you will feel like, okay, fine, no, how long I'll be there here? No, I have to get out of this place. So much of pollution, so much of people, and so much of it's just disgusting, right? So that's the creation of human, and God's creation is so beautiful and so artistic, right? So in that way, we can actually appreciate God. And then why was virus created by God? So no, we are also viruses, right? So we are creating trouble to others. So we, first of all, we should ask, no, why did God create me, right? So this, every single living entity has a particular kind of what is it, karma, and then God creates various living entities to nullify their own karmas, in that way. So it is sometimes people ask, I appreciate this question. Sometimes people ask, why is God not doing anything for this virus? So first question is that Lord is the one who's created this virus. At least that much point is really very appreciated here. So Lord is the one who has created the virus, and Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani Yantararudani Maya. He also directs the virus where it has to go and what it has to do and things like that, right? So he's having complete control of everything. And whatever karma we have, only that much we will get. And if we can work on preparing for our next life, if we can work on preparing for our auspicious future by engaging in this kind of devotional activities, definitely our destination will be very good, right? So all of us have been created karanam guna sangasya sadasat dyoni janmashu. So why we get different kinds of bodies, it is because we have associated with particular kind of modes in the previous life, and based on those modes we are getting different kinds of bodies in this current life, right? So that's the understanding from the Bhagavad Gita. Shiva is called Devo Mahadev. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he is the head of all the devatas, definitely. But he's not head of Lord Vishnu. Vishnu is not a devata. Vishnu is Supreme Lord, right? So sometimes I feel that the work I'm doing, I do not realize the importance of that. I just do happily because company is paying me for that. Only I do just as this as my duty, and that's it. So when virus will be ended. Okay, so the first question is that no, you're just doing your job as just a duty. That's very nice. So we can actually take up our real business as our spiritual journey, and then unlocking our hidden potentials within. Those things can be taken up as our real business. Business means we look for profit, and job means we just look for duty. We just do our duty and that's it. But then business means we look for more and more profit. So the more profit you get in your internal journey, that is very nice, right? So that is very nice. So you can progress a lot. And then when will the virus be ended? There are so many astrological predictions that are going in YouTube, so you can have them. And whether the virus ends now or later or whatever it is, the essential aspect is how am I going to progress in my internal journeys, right? So that's very important. So we can actually focus on that, and then we can see whatever comes. Sometimes even the astrology, we cannot rely upon them 100%. No, we should that's a Vedic science, bona fide science, but then we cannot possibly rely upon them. So whatever may be the case, whatever has been put upon in front of us, let us just go through that in a proper way. And then what we are supposed to do, according to the scriptures, let's read scriptures and act according to the scriptures, and let's face the reality of the world as it comes, and not get afraid of anything. And let's face everything. And if we are looking for internal journey, everything that happens will be auspicious, right? And what's the importance of yoga of modern age? So yoga of modern age, it can just help you in keeping some good health. Asana and pranayama is what essentially we are doing. No, that's the yoga of modern age. We are not doing yama niyama, we are not doing pratyahara, dhyana, dharana, and samadhi. So that's not happening over there. So we will not get any spiritual benefit out of it, but then we'll get some healthy body probably. That's something benefit of yoga of modern age. But then if we want spiritual benefit, we should chant the Hare Krishna mantra, and we should try to read these wonderful scriptures like Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So then and apply them in our life. So then that gives a lot of good spiritual credits. Okay, so okay, now last question. Where are Narayana Kavacha slokas that you mentioned? Okay, that's there in Srimad Bhagavatam. I will forward you right now in the groups. Okay, so thank you very much for your patient audience, and let's pray to the Supreme Lord that all of us progress nicely in our spiritual journey, our inward journey, and then let all auspiciousness be there in all your lives. So thank you very much for joining. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.